Hi Angela, my name is Terry. I'm in Birmingham, Alabama, and I think, your 8th follower on your YouTube channel. And I just wanted to say hi, and that I really appreciate your blog and your video updates. And I took your challenge, and I am learning how to upload and tape a video myself. I'm a knitter. I started out crocheting. I'm going to give my age away here, but I was taught to crochet by my cousin, who was a hippie back in the 60s and 70s, and all of my family's from Virginia, and so there's a long history of knitting, crocheting, quilting, and all of those arts, and we were actually the only family branch that ever left, and I wasn't exposed to a lot of that. But she would come visit us when we lived in Florida, and she taught me how to crochet. So years ago, I decided I was going to learn how to crochet again and actually read a pattern, because she actually sat down with me and showed me how to crochet, but I didn't know how to read a pattern. So I did that, and I've taken up just about every hobby you can imagine, craft-wise. In college, I cross-stitched, and years ago, probably about 15 years ago, I started my own business in a little small town, and there was this little old section of town that they decided kind of needed a theme, kind of a reason to get people there. And one of my friends, Laura, she had just opened up a bead business. So of course I took up beading, bought all that up, got every beading supply you can imagine. But also there was a woman named Mercedes who opened a yarn store. So that sort of reignited my passion, because I'd go over there and I'd see the colors and touch the yarn, and she had all these just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful yarns. And so I pulled up YouTube. This is right when all this was coming about, so YouTube was sort of new, so I watched and learned how to knit, because back then knitting was becoming popular. I crocheted those shawls that all the kids were wearing, and for some people, and then decided I wanted to learn to knit, because people weren't doing crochet at the time, really. So I taught myself to knit, and I kept buying stuff from Mercedes' store, Knit Nouveau, just kept buying and buying and buying. And my husband wasn't happy with me, so I sort of put it aside, and then she closed her shop. Laura still has the bead biz, but knitting sort of stuck with me. And then what happened was, a friend of mine at church, there's a charity kind of group we all belong to, and her group needed something to do for the year, so they decided to make, I think it was prayer shawls is how it started. So their whole group made prayer shawls, and Candace decided to keep it going. So she started a prayer shawl ministry at our church, and we meet every other Monday in the morning, and it really is interesting how things have taken off, because they, a few of us would show up, and, I was actually the youngest in the group, and I'm 50, but I got to know people I would have never, ever known otherwise, which was really fascinating. And as word kind of grew in the church that we did this, people started, as people's parents started dying, and people were cleaning out houses, they would donate all the yarn and all the supplies. So we have this huge closet at church full of yarn, and we go in there once a month and separate it out. But it's kind of interesting, because we'll have a pattern or kind of a thought in our head of what to do, but because we have so much yarn, we don't buy the official yarn that patterns are given. So we'll go in there and we'll pull colors and all sorts of stuff. And to show you an example, this was a yarn. Let's see if you can see it. And it just had one skein of it right there in the middle. And so I made it, and it only came to be that wide. So then I went in the closet, and I knew it was cotton, because a lot of these yarns don't have labels on them either. And I tried to find some colors that would match, so I found this and this and two pinks, and ended up making this prayer shawl. And it's pink, and got a little greeny olive in there, and then this is kind of what we all end up making. Just lots of pretty prayer shawls. I still need to tuck in some of my strings, but this is what we make at our church. And Candace will sew a charm on it that's a cross, probably right here. Sometimes she puts them on both corners, but she'll put them on the corners, and then somewhere, probably in the neck, she puts we had labels made that said, made in prayerful something for you from our church. And so anyway, that's got us started on that. But the funny thing is it got me going. You know, when you first learn to knit, you buy all the cheap stuff, and you know, you just think a needle's a needle. But with all these things that are donated, I actually bought me some circular needles, which is what I work with now, basically. But we've got some of the most beautiful needles that have been donated. So my needle collection is actually gorgeous, and we use everybody's old ones because we kind of swap them out. We use everybody's old ones to teach people and stuff like that. So there's that. And one thing, since I've got yarn hidden all over the house, one thing that we do, or I did, is I got frustrated once trying to read a knitting pattern. And so I realized I was just getting too much into one side of my brain, so I needed to do something to the other side of the brain. So I went and started to organize. So my parents, my mother is a shopaholic, and she's not well right now and can't really do anything. So Dad's kind of cleaning the house out. And so he's found all sorts of bags, like it's actually a purse, but this is great for these caps that we're making, because I can throw one skein of yarn in there, and I'll usually put the yarn in. Well, this is what's left. And I'll put the instructions for the caps or whatever the project is, and I'll put the needles in here. And then when I need to go somewhere, I'll just grab a bag and go, because I spend a lot of time in waiting rooms at hospitals and stuff with my parents. But one thing our church is doing now is we're making these caps for the kids for a church camp, but they needed 75 of them. So I made these 4 while sitting in the room last week, because sometimes you can wait for hours. But that's one thing I love to do, is just grab a bag and run. And then when I was I don't like football, but my son's in college, so we go down to tailgating parties. So while they're all watching the game, I just grab one of these and go. So I didn't have a pattern in this one yet. So this was some yarn that was donated. So I just thought I'd make a scarf out of it, since it says school colors. And the only bad part about this is I will sometimes throw things in my bag, and then 8 months later, when I think I've lost something, I find it. Like in this one, I've got a fan and some stuff. But yeah, that's how I organize a lot of my stuff. But that's about it. I do have lots of other hobbies, but this is the only one that's ever really stuck with me. But sort of out of this group, that's kind of been fascinating, was we have a really nice local library, and they started trying to, especially when the economy went down, they tried to expand different things to get people in the library and to continue donating. So one thing they did was they had Knit in Public Day. So people showed up for National Knit in Public Day, and they had like 150 people show up. So Shannon decided that she was going to see, and she got it approved. So once a month at the library, a bunch of people meet, and it's this huge room that's got sofas and things to put your feet up on. And there's also a cafe right next to it that serves food and coffee and drinks. So the second Saturday of every month we meet up there. So I've met lots of really fun, interesting people that way. But I just love the camaraderie that comes with it, and the stories people will tell. There's a woman in there that's probably 88 in my church group, and she talks about the reason she's just one of those that always knew how to knit, because her mother taught her when she, reading, writing, and knitting. So she said they would knit things for the troops during World War II, and so that was a big push, was to knit things to keep them warm while they were over in Europe. I just thought that was fascinating. But the library group's got more younger people, which makes it really fun. And I have a really wonderful gift of winning things. So every time we're at the library, we always have drawings, and a bunch of the yarn stores will donate things. A lot of times it's yarn, sometimes it's patterns, sometimes it's books. But I've won a lot of yarn there within patterns. And, so I've got just tons of these bags all in the house. I need to get one of those things that goes behind a door that has hooks all over it so I can hook all my bags on it and enjoy it. So anyway, just wanted to tell you about myself, and I hope you continue doing this because I really do like your blog and I like listening to your videos, so I'll catch up with the other two. But good luck, and I'll see you next week. Bye.